Flurrie sucks. A statement just as true as that Miss Mouth slaps. But these two terms have been very grossly misused. For as much as Miss Mouth slaps, she can't even do that very well. To say nothing of being the actual worst partner in the game. As for Flurrie, I'm not going to tell you why she sucks in the best way possible. I'm going to show you. You see this wonderful, wonderful cast of characters we can use in this game? Well, let's narrow it down a bit. Right around here on the right side of the screen. Yeah, this is perfection. In case you need a refresher, check the description for any rules in this challenge. For now, it's high time we started. Since Flurrie is only available halfway through Chapter 2, this means we just skipped the Shadow Sirens fight in the Bogley Woods, as well as of course Chapter 1. But since I want to cover as many bosses as possible, let's try fighting Gus. As you can see, Flurrie has a massive advantage in being able to So as I was saying, Flurrie is actually a pretty subpar partner in this game because of her attributes being better suited for defense rather than offense. But being subpar does not necessarily mean that she's actually a bad partner in this game either. Despite struggling with top spiky enemies like say Gus and his spear, Lip Lock allows her to remedy this somewhat by attacking enemies from the side instead. And this attack also restores Flurrie's HP, so she can last for a very long while. She also has other defensive advantages that come into effect when we fight Magnus 1 Grapple. Because I'm trying to minimize how many enemies I fight in this challenge, I don't have a lot of BP. Fortunately, all Mario really has to do is defend himself, and the guard will be sufficient to block any damage coming from the Smothering Stomp attack. Meanwhile, I have Damage Dodge P and Flurrie, which serves two purposes. One, it eliminates all damage from the Smothering Stomp upon guarding it. And two is when the X-Fists come in, as I'm able to attack the Magnus 1 Grapple with impunity, and the X-Fists do only 2 damage per hit, which I can easily heal off with Lip Lock. And the Earthquake can't hurt me because I'm floating. Over time, this does hurt Mario a fair bit, but it doesn't really matter when he can only be hit by the Earthquake. This tactic of restoring our HP by sealing it from Magnus 1 Grapple is actually really effective later on in the challenge, as it takes a lot of pressure off of Flurrie to heal herself. But that's not our only option either. We also have Gale Force, which while isn't great for most bosses, is actually fantastic for Chapter 3. There is an abundance of enemies here which Flurrie cannot directly attack. In addition to enemies that are spiky to touch on the top, there are also enemies like Bristles and Spinies, which are spiky on the side. With Gale Force, Flurrie effectively just says screw it, and outright admits she doesn't care about your defenses. She's gonna huff and puff and blow you down. You could call it a cheap tactic, but let's be real here. Other partners could only wish they had a move like this. And I would know because I've done all the runs before. Check them out later, will ya? The only real downside is that you still get star points, which will be counted towards the final ranking as far as just asking how many levels does she need to beat the game. Anyways, I've been stalling long enough. What about the Ironclads? Well, they're simple. I got Flurrie right here, I have him use Gulp, and there they go. What, you think this Yoshi kid isn't Flurrie? Nonsense, look at his name. I named him Flurrie right here. So as far as I'm concerned, this run is still perfectly legal and you have no choice but to keep watching the video. There were other fights like Bowser and Rock Hawk, but neither of those two were really that interesting either. Bowser ended up being very possible because of Flurrie's incredible girth and Lip Lock. And since Bowser could not feasibly hit Mario enough to actually knock him out, there really was not much of a risk of actually losing this fight. Or any of these fights for that matter, though grubber conditions did rear their ugly head eventually. The worst offender just has to be this fight with the Fuzzies, where I wanted to be fancy and wipe out all of these Fuzzies immediately, but Grubba said not to attack for the first 3 turns, and the green Fuzzy kept multiplying. Eventually I was done waiting, I tried to use Gale Force, and wouldn't you know it, one of the green Fuzzies stayed behind, with the flower Fuzzy repeatedly draining my FP. So because of that, this fight just became the slightest bit more complicated. Now of course, I have items to restore my FP with, I just tried to buy any items that are not necessary to beat the game, but you get the idea. It was not very fun. There's also Rock Hawk, and this fight is the main reason I wanted to redo this entire challenge. Cause wouldn't you know it, this wasn't my first rodeo. You might be wondering what would make me want to redo an entire video from scratch. Well, let's just say I'm not proud of my own sense of humor. What I'm trying to say is that you can only make so many jokes about Rock Hawk's name, and Flurrie's Lip Lock being able to steal HP without feeling extremely uncomfortable. And that's the only reason why. Trust me, it's true. Macho Grubba meanwhile was actually pretty intimidating. So this is actually where I say Flurrie's biggest weakness really comes into effect. Because Flurrie's main method of dealing damage is so slow, she can't exactly rush enemies down like say Goombella or Yoshi can. but she's also not very good at protecting Mario like say Koops can either. This wasn't a problem for me because Macho Grubba was pretty miserly about attacking Mario, but it's worth noting that this fight lasted a whole 12 turns. And even Flurrie can't last forever if she keeps getting rushed down by Macho Grubba with his buffs. Let's just all be thankful that Flurrie is so thick, because man does that give her a lot of good bulk. Chapters 2 and 3 were pretty fun with Flurrie, but Chapter 4 is really slow. Of course, there are some great items available here, but the fights themselves are not impressive at all. Atomic Boo was mostly harmless because it did not really go for Mario very much. And keep in mind, I don't have P down D up yet, and I only have 10 HP max.
I can explain.
At the Spiriting Disc Goes Away, we fight Dupless, and he's no biggie either. He's strictly weaker than Macho Grubba, especially after he transforms, and so there is no chance of actually losing this fight at all. As for the rematch, well, it doesn't really matter because we don't have Flurrie by our side. I guess for what it's worth, this is the first time Flurrie tasted defeat. Yeah, I'm sorry, but you know what they say. I had to do it to her. At least from this point forward, we should always have Flurrie on us for the entire game. Chapter 5 involved a lot of Gale Force because of all the embers which we cannot touch directly, and then fighting Cortez. Phase 1, I missed almost every guard. This gives me a very low opinion of myself. I can do this fight first try in Impossible mode, but not with this freaky performance. But yeah, Cortez's first and second phases saw a lot of body slams and then the lip lock finishing the phase off. Phase 3 was different though, because in this phase I actually used Gale Force. And just like that, Cortez is entirely devoid of his weapons. Some more body slams here, a few lip locks there, the audience's souls get eaten, you know, the usual stuff. And that's curtains for one of 2 Chapter 5 bosses. Onwards then to Lord Crump and his Crossnuts. Lord Crump was actually pretty tough this time around. You have to guard pretty consistently not to get completely ruined by his Crossnuts and their damage output. You can't really spam your lip lock when you don't have a lot of FP to go around anyway. And I can't give Flurrie too much defense without sacrificing defense on Mario, which will be for phase 2. And on that note, 3. Though I'd otherwise say this fight was pretty par for the course. After guarding almost every attack, Flurrie ended up winning this fight with only about 4 HP left until she got healed up to 9 HP after her last lip lock. But prior to that, my entire game plan was using Body Slam until my HP dropped, and then I would use lip lock instead. It's simple and it works. Around now we get the up arrow, and that means Flurrie is now Ultra rank. Since now she has 6 attack power, and that means after Power Plus becomes 7, this felt like a great time to try to pit advantage of trials to get myself the strange set, because I do need this key item for the final boss, as prior experience has taught me. And by now, Flurrie should have plenty of bulk to survive anything that comes her way. Did anything happen in the pit that I should probably be showing you? No. I would never keep secrets from you, my viewers. I'm not like those other YouTubers that pretend like they're perfect and they don't make any mistakes in their playthroughs. If I was, I wouldn't be able to show you the 2 losses I had to Smorg. Bar none, the most difficult boss fight so far in this challenge. Not helped by the fact that I don't have access to Double Dip P until after Chapter 6. Though I can have the defense to block any damage from the miasma attacks, the timing for these tentacles are very, very awkward. There really isn't a good visual cue to look out for, and that leads to a lot of frustration in trying to block attacks that you can't really tell when they're coming out. Not necessarily unpredictable, like say, this entirely unrelated attack in a later boss fight in this challenge, but very much uncomfortable. There's also the fact that Flurrie really struggles against multiple targets, and this one has you fight down 3 miasmas before you can even attack the main body. For this reason, you want to save as many of those strong attacking items as possible, like shooting stars and earthquakes. The miasmas have a max HP of 4, except for the claw which has 6 HP, and when they go down, the main body is vulnerable to attack. A particularly annoying aspect of this boss fight is how it makes Mario a literal anchor, particularly when the claw comes out, because this claw, despite not making Smorg invincible, hits absurdly hard on Mario. And if he falls, then so does Flurrie. Flurrie has lip lock, so her survivability really isn't a problem, but Mario only has 10 HP, and even if Mario guards it, he loses about half of his max HP. Though ironically, this is probably the easiest attack to guard, even though I do have some issues with actually guarding it. Pro tip, CRTs for the win, HDTVs for the lose, and this is why I don't use a smart TV. I promise you I'm not prejudiced, unlike this game sometimes. I just really hate input delay, and I still haven't readjusted to my new TV's input delay. I feel lost to time sometimes. But long story short, so long as I actually guard the miasma claw, and by that I mean I guard it consistently, this fight is basically all wrapped up. And that concludes Chapter 6, which is possibly the hardest chapter for a while. Though the while really wasn't very long because Chapter 7 by comparison was not very difficult. Forget the cross knots, they get Gale Forced out. Magnus 2 meanwhile was just a lot of the same. Use Gale Force when the X punches come out, and otherwise use Lip Lock and Body Slam. There otherwise is just nothing noticeable because we have so much defense that even a 6 power attack like the Magnus Drill attack does nothing to us. After all is said and done, the end of the Crystal Star Search has been rather anticlimactic, hasn't it been? Fortunately, shortly afterwards is Chapter 8, and this is where the real challenge begins. Not only do all the bosses here hit really hard, and they have a lot of HP, meaning fights can last for quite a while, but a lot of attacks here pierce defense. So the damage she, and especially Mario, will take will be very high. Now Dark Bones wasn't necessarily too troublesome, but because they kept spawning more dry bones, well, it meant I was forced to get a lot of star points. As far as actual threats though, Gloomtail fits the bill to a T. And I say that despite the fact that this was one of my first attempts. But to accomplish this, I needed the power of love. So I went and took this absolutely beautiful breathing creature onto this island of Keelhaul Key and set her up on a date with this Goomba who has absolutely no taste in women. Stupidity aside though, this gives us a couple's cake, which is basically a slow shroom but you cannot use it on yourself. Perfect for this fight though because I needed to actually use a slow shroom on Mario, but I didn't want to use my actual slow shroom on him because, well, I like having the freedom of choice. And what this slow shroom allows is for Mario to keep taking these poison breaths from Gloomtail while he's in danger so that he actually survives the attacks. Without my 2 last stands, instead of taking 2 damage, he'd have been taking 6. And after he does take damage, the HP regen gets back to a safe HP value. Meanwhile, Flurrie does what she does best, Lip Lock till the cows come home. And since she tanks Gloomtail's hits so well, it doesn't really matter how much damage she's taking, because all the damage she is taking is replaced by Gloomtail's damage instead. Like I said before, Lip Lock is invaluable in this challenge. It also helps that the Earthquake can't hurt her. Oh my, that did a lot of damage to Mario though. You may have also noticed that Mario has 15 HP. Yeah, I'm using HP+. Think of me how you will, but for this fight, it's darn near required to survive. Because after Gloomtail takes 48 damage, he can use this move called Mega Breath, which has an attack power of 16 and also pierces defense. Mario can only barely survive this attack with both P down DF and a standard guard, with only 1 HP left or 3 HP after the couple's cake, which is also just how much damage Gloomtail can do with his Earthquake attack. And this is a problem. I was able to use a super stream for the Mega Breath, but I don't really have any options anymore for the Earthquake. So to win this, I had to rely on luck and use Dodgy Fog for once. Because I anticipated the Earthquake, and I was correct, leading Mario to then dodge it. Had I not tried Dodgy Fog, I'd have lost on the spot. But that opening allowed Flurrie to finish Gloomtail off on the first attempt, and I am very happy with this result. Yeah, we rolled triple 7s on the slot of stupendousness. And that was just the first of many boss fights in Chapter 8 which I was dreading. And before moving into the next boss, just a bit of an intermission. If you want to support the channel and don't have any money, that's perfectly fine. You helped out a ton just by watching this video as much as you have. Thank you. Next was the Shadow Sirens Redux. Again, this fight relies a lot on luck, so to start this fight off, I tried a Sleepy Sheep. It's the first turn, and if I can get Marilyn out of the picture, that would help a lot. And wouldn't you know it, only Marilyn was put to sleep by this item. So the game plan became pretty simple. Take out Beldam first because of all of her crazy magic. And by the time she's out, get Marilyn out of the picture immediately. Even despite the lucky Sleepy Sheep, I could have very easily lost this from missing a guard on Beldam's Blizzard. Fortunately though, it doesn't freeze me and I'm able to finish her off. Marilyn was still down to luck, but nothing too severe where Mario managed to drag Flurrie down to the depths of hell. Probably because we're already 6 feet underground, or however far underground we really are. And then Dupless was just kind of there. Yeah, I've been using a lot of items as of late because I really need them. But not as much as I'm going to need them for the next few bosses coming up with Grottus, Bowser, and Kammy Koopa. Grottus in particular is very annoying. The fact he starts with 4 Grottus X's and they create a barrier that you can't do damage through means we're forced to go very heavy duty on our item usage here. The weaker items like the POW blocks we collected as well as the Fire Flower really get the shine in this fight. as the Grotus Hexes don't have a lot of HP anyway, and whenever Grotus is vulnerable, we have a Lip Lock, and we are very fortunate that this attack ignores defense as well. However, Grotus did not get its reputation for being a hard boss for no good reason. Don't you just love visual glitches? I know I don't. Regardless, Grotus also packs some very annoying status effects, like say Dodgy and Counter, which can either force Flurrie to miss, or make it so that she can't heal from Lip Lock. And despite the latter, we managed to beat Grotus in our second attempt. Yes, I said second. The first attempt saw Mario burn to death. And like an actual piece of paper, it spread to Flurrie too. But after that trip, we have to immediately fight Bowser and Kamikoopa without being able to save in between fights. Fortunately though, we were able to level up, and this is my last level up for this challenge as well, so it really works out. Now Bowser and Kamikoopa are also really annoying. Not so much difficult though. They're annoying in the fact that it's because of this fight, I had to use P update on P on Flurrie, or else she would not be able to match Kamikoopa's healing ability. You see, she can use her magic to heal 8 HP at a time, meanwhile Flurrie can only do 9 HP worth of damage. If I didn't do this, I'd risk a stalemate. But that's not all that really makes her the worst. She can also use her magic to make herself invisible, which is just dandy when it's optimal to take her out first, because otherwise, she's not gonna let Bowser go down. At the very least though, when her invisibility does wear off, I'm able to KO her pretty quickly. Though I did have to use my Power Punch to make it happen. Not that big of a loss though, for the Shadow Queen I have to focus a lot more on the healing items anyway, and 2 extra attack for 2 turns really won't matter at all. Bowser meanwhile is more simple. While focusing on Kamikoopa, I use a combination of Volt Shrooms and Courage Shells here. Courage Shells to make up for Flurrie's lower defense, and Volt Shrooms because of the utility they offer in this boss fight. Fun fact, I discovered this. If Bowser is not allowed to complete his attack animation for his bite, or his ground pound when he uses them for the first time, he will keep trying the attack until he's able to do it successfully without getting hit by recoil. Oh, poor Bowser, he never learns. Keeps trying to kidnap the princess, keeps trying attacks to get him hurt. I swear I'm seeing a pattern here.
Coincidence? I think not!
Of course, eventually I drew out of Volt Shrooms, but at that point, it's not a big deal. Mario still has the HP to pull through, as well as Last Stand, so even if he starts taking damage directly from Bowser, he lasts just a little bit longer because of danger status. Meanwhile, Flurrie is unbreakable, and after repeated lip locks and one final kiss of death, we say goodbye to the King of the Koopas, leaving only one more boss fight to go, the Shadow Queen. A boss with more HP than the Shadow Samurais all combined, with potentially just as many attacking turns, and the ability to heal herself like Kamikoopa. Except here, she can heal off of you, and do it twice in one turn. And having 7 attack power, that means potentially as much as 14 HP can be healed at once if you can't guard. But there are ways to mitigate this. Booth Seats, Dodgy Fog, P down the up. We have options, though they're not nearly as potent as the Shadow Queen's options are. Like, if we get really unlucky, this fight could actually be unwinnable, purely by proxy of the fact that the Shadow Queen can heal faster than we can hurt her. And given this, is there really any advantage to being a stick in the mud at this point in the challenge? I don't think so. The first time I did this fight, I used Pity Flower. Why? I have no freaking idea. Like I said before almost 2 years ago, my brain went full retard. But yeah, this time around, I resorted to using Happy Flower instead. Both of them. And between this, the bingos I managed to get, and all of the items I had saved up the entire adventure, like all my Ultra Shrooms and Boost Cheats, I dare say we were sitting pretty. Even regarding my live shrooms, I only used 1 out of my 5. The fight was long and tense, but after about 20 minutes on the final phase, we show this witch just who the true bewitching beauty really is. But before you go, the results for Flurrie in this run were basically the same as they were my last time doing this challenge. Level 16, 0 shot points, and she's still the second best partner in the game. Of course, my unending thanks to Ricardo and Splash 8 for their donations to my channel. Has this performance changed your mind? Bet that even after this entire adventure you still disagree with me. And you know, that's fair. You can think that Flurrie's a bad partner, you can call the Cross Knots X-Knots, and you can think the Super Guards are overpowered. Though on the note of Cross Knots, let me check something with this title log actually. Shoot.